My name is Lena Marlowe, 36 years old. For 4 relentless years, I lived on caffeine, case law, and stubbornness. I worked days at Harper and Stone, a small Charlotte law firm known more for family squabbles than fame, and spent nights in lecture halls chasing a master's in law. Weekends were for contracts and cold pizza. Every late-night brief I wrote, every exam I survived, had led to this afternoon, my graduation day. The auditorium at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte smelled faintly of roses and stress. Rows of black gowns shimmered under stage lights, the air thick with the click of cameras and the occasional sniffle of proud parents. I should have been glowing with pride. Instead, I was counting empty chairs. 3 of them, front row, left section, reserved for my parents, Deborah and Edward Marlowe. They'd promised to be there. I'd sent them the date, the parking map, even the seat numbers. We wouldn't miss it for the world, Mom had said. But the world, apparently, had other plans. Or rather, Shannon did. My older sister, 40, the family's self-proclaimed star, a freelance event planner who could turn any living room into a venue and any minor booking into a miracle. 2 weeks earlier, she'd announced a small party to celebrate her latest contract, a $10,000 wedding gig. The party just happened to fall on the same day as my graduation. Coincidence? Maybe once. But in our family, Shannon's coincidences always cost me something. I forced a smile as I took my seat among the graduates. My emerald dress peeked beneath the black robe, a small secret rebellion against invisibility. The dean's voice echoed through the hall, praising our perseverance, our sacrifices. I tuned out, scanning the crowd one last time. Still empty. The ceremony began. Caps bobbing, names mispronounced, applause blending into static. When the usher motioned for my row to stand, I inhaled sharply. The stage lights blurred the faces in the audience, but I searched anyway, desperate for one familiar silhouette. Lena Marlowe, Master of Laws, with honors. Applause. Polite, generic, no cheering section to claim me. I walked steady across the stage, shook the dean's hand, and smiled for the photographer whose flash caught the exact moment my stomach hollowed. The diploma case felt heavier than justice itself. Back in my seat, I clapped for the next name, my hands mechanical. Around me, classmates waved to families, flowers in their arms, balloons bobbing above proud parents. A girl beside me leaned over and whispered, "Congrats. Hey, didn't I see your folks in that live Shannon posted earlier? Looked like a fun party." The words slid in like a knife. I nodded without answering. My throat closed. I'd muted Shannon's updates weeks ago, tired of her endless brag reels, but I could picture it perfectly. Wine glasses, confetti, the caption. Something like making moves while others talk. When the ceremony ended, I walked alone out to the university lawn. Graduates were hugging, posing, laughing. I stood apart, the afternoon sun glaring off the polished diploma case. The photographer asked if I wanted a family photo. "They couldn't make it," I said softly, and he hesitated just long enough for pity to sting. I told myself it didn't matter, that I'd achieve this for myself, that success didn't need witnesses. But lies, no matter how noble, taste bitter. My phone vibrated in my purse, once, twice, then again and again until it sounded frantic. I ignored it at first, assuming more generic congratulations from classmates. But when I glanced down, my pulse jumped. 30 missed calls from Dad, 1 text from Mom. "We need to talk. It's urgent." The words blurred as I read them twice, then 3 times. My mind tried to stitch logic from chaos. A car accident? A fire? Or maybe, some twisted reflex whispered, it was guilt. Maybe they'd realized what they'd done and were reaching out to make it right. The thought was enough to make me fumble for my keys and head for the parking lot. The Charlotte air outside was thick and warm, cicadas buzzing in the distance like static. I slid into my car, tossed the diploma onto the passenger seat, and finally called back. It rang once before Dad answered, his voice ragged. "Lena, thank God, it's your sister." My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. "What about Shannon?" "She fell, at the party, down the stairs. The ambulance just left. They're admitting her at Carolina Medical. Broken leg, maybe worse." A long silence. My thoughts stumbled. The irony hit first, then confusion. "Wait, the party you all were at instead of my graduation?" "Lena, please," he said, voice cracking. "This isn't the time. We're at the hospital now. She's hurt bad." The ache in his tone was real, so was the cold, distant part of me that whispered, "Of course." Even now, everything circles back to her. I started the engine, headlights flicking on against the dimming sky. My reflection in the windshield looked like someone else, someone who had worked years for applause that never came. "Which hospital again?" I asked quietly. He told me. I repeated it to be sure, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. As I pulled onto the road, I glanced at the 3 reserved tickets still tucked in the glove compartment, names printed neatly. Deborah Marlowe, Edward Marlowe, Shannon Evans. 3 promises unkept, 3 ghosts in folding chairs. The traffic lights ahead blurred into red and gold streaks. I didn't know what waited at that hospital, but something inside me already sensed the truth. My sister's fall wasn't the only crash happening tonight. The emergency ward at Carolina Medical smelled like antiseptic and panic. Families huddled in plastic chairs, clutching coffee cups that had gone cold hours ago. I spotted my parents instantly. Mom's cardigan draped around her shoulders like armor, Dad pacing in a loop that left scuff marks on the tile. When Mom saw me, relief washed over her face. "Lena, thank God you're here," she said, grabbing my hands as if proximity could erase what they'd done. "How is she?" I asked, my voice clipped. "They're prepping her for surgery," Dad said. His eyes were red, the kind of red that comes from both worry and guilt. "She fell from the second-floor landing, fractured her femur clean through. It's going to be complicated." A nurse passed behind him, calling out another name. My stomach twisted as I took in their disheveled clothes, the faint smell of wine lingering on Mom's sleeve. They'd come straight from Shannon's party. "Can we talk somewhere private?" Dad asked, gesturing toward the vending machines. I followed, the hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence between us. When he finally spoke, his words came in short bursts. "Her insurance. It won't cover the full surgery. The doctor said it could cost 50, maybe 60,000. She'll need months of rehab. She doesn't have the savings." I stared at him, waiting for the part where this became my problem. Mom stepped closer, voice trembling. "Honey, you've been saving, right? For your firm? Maybe you could—" "Help her?" I finished for her, the disbelief in my tone louder than I meant it to be. "You skipped my graduation to drink champagne at her party, and now you want my life savings for her surgery?" Her chin wobbled. "We made a mistake, Lena. Shannon said your ceremony was—" "Just a formality?" I interrupted. Her eyes widened, confirming what I already suspected. I pulled out my phone and opened the email I'd nearly deleted weeks ago, one I'd been accidentally copied on when Shannon sent it to our parents. "Mom, Dad, Lena's graduation is just a formality. She'll understand if you can't make it. My event is a huge opportunity. There'll be real clients watching." The words glared back from the screen, sterile and cruel. I handed them the phone. Mom covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh my God." Dad's jaw clenched. "I didn't see that," he muttered, but the guilt in his voice betrayed him. "You didn't want to," I said quietly. "You just believed her, again." Silence stretched between us. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped steadily, marking time for someone else's emergency. Finally, Dad spoke. "We're sorry, Lena, truly, but Shannon's hurt, and we don't know what else to do. We need you." That last line landed like a stone. "We need you." The same phrase they'd used my whole life when bills were due, when Shannon's car broke down, when someone needed the responsible one to fix things. My hands were cold despite the hospital heat. "Do you know how long I've been saving? 4 years. $60,000. Every penny meant for the office I've been dreaming of." Mom's eyes filled. "You'll make it back. You always do. But if Shannon doesn't have the surgery—" Her voice cracked before finishing the sentence. For a long moment, I said nothing. I stared at the vending machine glass, at my reflection distorted between rows of candy bars. I saw the same girl who'd once believed that achievement could earn love. The same woman still standing here, expected to fix everything, even the messes she didn't make. Finally, I exhaled. "I'll pay for it." Mom blinked, startled. "You will?" "Yes," I said flatly. "But this is the last thing I'll ever do for this family." Dad opened his mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to thank me, but I raised a hand. "No speeches. Just tell the billing department I'll transfer the funds tonight." I walked to the admissions desk, each step feeling like wading through cement. The clerk glanced up. "Are you the guarantor for Ms. Evans?" I hesitated on the last name. Shannon had changed hers for her business branding. Another little reinvention that made her sound more glamorous than Marlowe ever could. "Yes," I said, the word cutting my tongue on the way out. I filled out the forms, line after line of information: address, phone, employer, amount authorized. My pen hovered at the signature line. I thought about the Italian restaurant reservation sitting unopened in my inbox, the emerald dress folded carefully on the back seat of my car, the version of me who had believed this day would change everything. Then I signed. The clerk took the papers and nodded politely. "We'll send confirmation within the hour." When I turned back, my parents were watching me with tearful gratitude that felt more like weight than relief. "Thank you, sweetheart," Mom whispered. I didn't answer. I just handed Dad my car keys. "Her things are probably still at your house. You'll need to get them when she's discharged." "Lena." "I'm tired," I said, stepping past them. "I've got nothing left to give tonight." Outside, the night air hit me like a wall. I leaned against the car door, staring up at the hospital windows where white curtains fluttered like ghosts. $50,000 gone in minutes. 4 years of savings, vanished into the same void where my family's loyalty used to be. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry anymore. Just empty. Inside my pocket, my phone buzzed again, an automated bank alert confirming the transfer. I deleted it without reading. The glow from the hospital sign lit my reflection on the windshield. Tired eyes, smudged lipstick, a degree in one hand and an unpaid emotional debt in the other. I whispered to no one. This was the last time. Then I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. The next morning, I woke to sunlight crawling through the blinds like an uninvited guest. My gown still hung over the chair, its fabric limp, the tassel twisted. For a moment, I forgot what day it was, and then it hit me. Graduation yesterday, hospital last night, the wired $50,000 that had drained my future before midnight. I sat on the edge of the bed, the diploma case beside me like a cruel joke. All those years, every all-nighter, every skipped holiday, they'd all led here, to silence. Not a single text from Mom or Dad this morning, just the automated email from my bank confirming the payment. I opened my laptop and scrolled through my inbox until I found the reservation for La Luce Vita, the little Italian restaurant I'd booked weeks ago for a celebration that never happened. The email subject line read, "Your table for 4 awaits." I clicked cancel reservation and closed the tab before the confirmation could load. For the rest of that week, I went through the motions. Work, laundry, pretending not to replay the hospital scene. I told myself it was just money, that I'd rebuild. But every time I checked my account balance, the missing zeros stared back like a wound. On Thursday, I blocked my parents' numbers, then Shannon's. Not out of cruelty, but preservation. If I kept the door open, I knew I'd step back through it. By the weekend, my apartment felt too small for the weight of what had happened. I poured a cup of coffee and opened a folder on my computer labeled Future Practice. It had spreadsheets, budget notes, city comparisons. I scrolled past Boston, Denver, Austin, until my cursor stopped on Miami. Population growth, rising demand for family law specialists, sunshine instead of regret. It looked like oxygen on a page. That night, I listed furniture for sale. The couch, the desk, even the bookshelf I'd built from IKEA at 2 a.m. during my second semester. By morning, half of it was gone. The apartment echoed differently, freer somehow. When I told my boss at Harper & Stone that I'd be leaving, he didn't try to stop me. "You've got grit, Marlo," he said, sliding a hand across the cluttered desk. "You'll do fine anywhere." Fine. The word sounded like a ceiling, not a promise. 2 weeks later, I packed everything into a single moving truck and drove south. The skyline of Charlotte disappeared behind me, small, gray, and heavy with memories. Miami hit me like a pulse. Heat shimmered off the pavement. Palm fronds clattered against glass, and every street smelled faintly of salt and gasoline. I signed a 6-month lease on a modest 1-bedroom above a Cuban bakery and spent my last $10,000 on a deposit and a tiny office space downtown. The space was laughably small. 2 desks, 1 window that didn't open, and a flickering fluorescent light that hummed like it was trying to speak. But when I set my nameplate on the door, Lena Marlowe, attorney at law, something inside me finally exhaled. The first client came a week later. A woman named Carmen, 38, fighting for custody of her son after her husband disappeared with their savings. She was nervous, twisting her hands as she talked. I listened, taking notes on a legal pad until her voice steadied. When she finished, she asked quietly, "Do you think I have a chance?" I looked her in the eye. "You've got more than a chance," I said. You've got me. It wasn't just reassurance, it was conviction, the kind I'd never been able to find when speaking to my own family. By month's end, my office smelled like burnt coffee and new beginnings. I worked 12-hour days, eating empanadas from the bakery downstairs, learning how to breathe again between clients and court filings. Then, one afternoon, an envelope arrived, a billing statement from the hospital in Charlotte. My name sat at the top under Secondary Responsible Party. Apparently, when I'd signed for Shannon's surgery, the hospital had listed me as a guarantor for all follow-up care. My chest tightened. The total, $3,800. Physical therapy charges. I called the hospital immediately. There's been a mistake, I said, keeping my tone level. The woman on the line clicked her keyboard. You're listed as financial guarantor. It was likely entered by a family member during intake. A family member, of course. It took an hour, 2 faxed documents, and a recorded statement to clear my name. When the confirmation email finally came through, I stared at it for a long time. A few months earlier, it would have wrecked me. Now, it just confirmed what I already knew, that in my family, I'd always been the default safety net. Not anymore. That night, I locked my office, stepped outside, and looked up at the Miami skyline. The buildings gleamed like new possibilities, each window catching the last orange flare of sunset. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. Unknown number. I didn't check it. I let it ring, watching the light fade. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the urge to answer. 6 months passed before I realized I'd stopped counting the days since I left Charlotte. The city that once defined me had become a background hum, a place I used to live. Miami had its own rhythm, chaotic, sun-drenched, alive in ways that made forgetting possible. My mornings began with the grind of the espresso machine downstairs, my afternoons with client meetings that stretched into twilight. My office plant, a stubborn little pothos named Verdict, was thriving better than I expected. Maybe we both were. By August, I had 3 ongoing cases and more word-of-mouth clients than my one-woman firm could comfortably handle. Most were family matters. Custody disputes, contested wills, desperate people trying to claw their way toward fairness. Every time I listened to someone describe the feeling of being overlooked or manipulated, it hit a familiar nerve. One afternoon, a client named Angela Ruiz sat across from me, tears brimming. Her ex-husband had drained their joint savings under her name, and she blamed herself for not catching it sooner. You trusted someone who took advantage of that, I told her, sliding the financial records across the desk. That's not stupidity. That's loyalty weaponized. Her breath hitched. How do you stop being that person? I hesitated, the answer unfolding in my head before it reached my lips. You stop explaining yourself to people who profit from your guilt. Her shoulders sagged with quiet relief. I watched her leave and realized the advice wasn't just for her. That night, I closed up late. Outside, the humid air clung to my skin as thunder grumbled far off the coast. My phone buzzed with an email notification. I almost ignored it, assuming it was spam, until I saw the sender. Edward Marlowe. The subject line was one word, sorry. I stood there for a full minute before opening it. The message was short, typed without my father's usual commas and caution. Lena, we were wrong. No excuses, just wrong. Mom says hello. We hope you're okay. Dad. No request, no guilt, no mention of Shannon. I reread it twice, waiting for anger or tears, but neither came. Just quiet. The kind that arrives when something finally stops hurting. Still, I couldn't delete it. Instead, I moved it to a folder labeled Records. Old habit. Old protection. The next morning, I called my assistant, part-time intern, to tell her we'd won the Ruiz case. She whooped over the phone. You're really building something here, Lena. I'm trying, I said, smiling faintly. Later that week, my cousin Beth called from Charlotte. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but she didn't waste time with pleasantries. Your parents don't talk much these days, she said. Everyone knows what happened at Shannon's party. Word got around. I leaned against the railing outside my office, listening as the sounds of the city blurred behind me. Traffic, laughter, the clink of dishes from the bakery below. Shannon lost 2 clients after the accident, Beth continued. Apparently one of them saw her drinking before the fall. She's struggling to book anything now. I closed my eyes. For a brief moment, I saw her as the sister I'd grown up with. Messy, bright, reckless, always sure the world would catch her before she hit the ground. Are they okay? I asked quietly. They're managing, but your mom mentioned they miss you. The words should have pierced, but they didn't. They just floated there, untethered. After we hung up, I went back inside. The office was still and soft under the buzz of the ceiling fan. I poured a cup of coffee, sat at my desk, and stared at the inbox where Dad's apology rested like a sealed exhibit in a courtroom I no longer attended. Maybe one day I'd write back. Maybe I wouldn't. The next afternoon, a sudden downpour hit the city, rain drumming against the windows like a restless jury. I packed my files, unplugged the lamp, and checked that verdict had enough water before locking up. The air outside smelled of asphalt and renewal. As I walked to my car, I caught my reflection in a rain puddle. Tired, focused, free. There were no more empty seats waiting for me to fill them. No more applause owed, no more approval owed back. Only forward. A year later, Miami didn't feel like a restart anymore. It felt like mine. The bakery downstairs knew my order before I opened my mouth. 1 cortado, extra foam, no sugar. The courthouse guards waved me through with the ease reserved for regulars. My office walls, once bare, were now lined with thank you cards from clients. Messy handwriting, ink smudged by tears, gratitude that felt unfiltered and real. That morning, I arrived early for a custody hearing. The hallway was cool and echoing, the marble floors carrying every heel click like punctuation. My client, a single father named Omar, sat hunched on the bench, twisting his wedding ring around his finger. "You ready?" I asked. He nodded, voice low. "I just want my son to know I tried." Something in that sentence hit me harder than expected. I just want them to know I tried. It was the same quiet plea I'd whispered my whole life to people who never heard it. I smiled, steady. Then let's make sure he does. We won that case. It wasn't glamorous. No reporters, no applause. But when Omar hugged me outside the courthouse, whispering thank you into my shoulder, it felt like a kind of graduation I'd never gotten before. Back at the office, sunlight pooled across my desk. My phone buzzed with a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I pressed play out of habit. A woman's voice filled the room, soft but sure. "Hi, Ms. Marlowe. It's Carmen Ruiz. You helped me last year. I just wanted to say, we're okay now. My son's happy. We moved into a new place. Thank you for not letting me give up." The message ended, and for a moment, I just sat there, breathing in the silence it left behind. That night, I found myself writing again. Not case notes this time, but a letter. Not to send, just to say what I never had. "Dear Mom and Dad, you taught me that love without boundaries is just obligation dressed as loyalty. I forgive you, but I can't keep living as the reliable one who never needs anything back. I hope you're okay, I really do. Lena." I folded the paper once and slipped it into a drawer labeled personal. No courtroom, no verdict. Just closure, private and sufficient. Later, I booked a dinner reservation at a small Italian restaurant a few blocks from my apartment. The name made me smile. La Vita Nuova. A coincidence, maybe, but the kind that felt like a wink from the universe. The hostess seated me by the window. Candlelight flickered against the glass as I ordered ravioli and a single glass of red wine. When the plate arrived, I raised the glass slightly. Not to anyone, not to anything lost, but to everything I'd built in the quiet aftermath. "To self-trust," I murmured. The wine was warm, rich, steadying. Outside, Miami pulsed with music and possibility. My phone buzzed once on the table, a new client inquiry. The subject line read, "Inheritance dispute. Younger sibling wants control of family estate." I stared at it for a second, then smiled, slow, knowing. When you've lived your whole life cleaning up after someone else's choices, you learn exactly how to help people like that. I typed a short reply. "Come in tomorrow. I can help." Then I slid the phone away, finished my meal, and stepped out into the night. The air smelled of sea salt and second chances. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was running from anything. I was simply walking forward, steady, unhurried, untethered. And as the city lights shimmered around me, I realized that worth isn't proven by who claps for you. It's measured by the peace you refuse to lose.